Imagine a land of vast deserts, towering mountains, and bustling oasis cities, stretching from the Atlantic shores of Morocco to the sun-scorched sands of Libya. For thousands of years, this region was home to a people whose history, culture, and identity predate the arrival of any foreign conqueror, the Berbers, also known as the Amazigh. Their name, meaning free people or noble ones, perfectly captures the essence of a civilization defined by resilience, independence, and an unyielding connection to their land. The story of the Berbers is not just a tale of survival. It is a journey through time, a living testament to human adaptability and cultural endurance. Long before the Arab armies swept across North Africa, before the Romans built their roads and aqueducts, the Berbers thrived in a society rich with art, music, language, and trade. They were master craftsmen, creating intricate textiles, jewelry, and pottery that reflected both their environment and their deep spiritual beliefs. Their communities were built on egalitarian principles, with collective decision-making and a respect for the wisdom of elders. Women, too, held influential roles, preserving oral histories, songs, and traditions that connected generations. Trade was another pillar of Berber life. Their caravans crossed the unforgiving Sahara, carrying salt, gold, and other precious goods, bridging civilizations from the Mediterranean to sub-Saharan Africa. And when it came to defending their homeland, the Berbers were formidable warriors. Legendary figures like Queen Kahina led fierce resistance against early Arab incursions, refusing to surrender their culture and autonomy. Her story is just one example of the many ways the Amazigh have shaped the history of North Africa, standing at the crossroads of empires yet never losing their essence. Yet, the Berbers' story is more than a record of battles and trade routes. It is a narrative of identity, of a people who preserved their language Tazikh and one of the world's oldest scripts, Tifinagh, despite centuries of external pressures. Their traditions, stories, and songs have survived the tides of conquest, forming a cultural backbone that remains vibrant even today. In modern North Africa, these legacies continue to influence art, festivals, and the very identity of millions of people who proudly call themselves Amazigh. In this video, we will explore the remarkable journey of the Berbers, how they lived, how they thrived, and how they navigated the arrival of Arab culture and Islam. We will uncover the layers of history that explain why North Africa today is a mosaic of Arab and Amazigh identities. Along the way, you will discover stories of resilience, innovation, and cultural pride that span thousands of years. If you love learning about hidden histories and cultures that have shaped the world, make sure to hit the like button, share this video, and subscribe to the channel. Join us as we uncover the incredible legacy of the Amazigh people and explore the deep roots of North Africa's past, a story that is as inspiring as it is fascinating. Long before the vast deserts of North Africa became a crossroads of empires, the Berbers, or Amazigh, cultivated a culture that was as resilient and expansive as the landscapes they called home. Stretching from the Atlantic shores of Morocco to the arid sands of Libya and the rugged peaks of the Atlas Mountains, life among the Berbers was defined not by conquest or domination, but by an enduring connection to their environment, a profound sense of community, and a creativity that flourished in harmony with the natural world. Their language, Tazikh, was more than a means of communication. It was a vessel of history, a living record of a people whose stories, laws, and values had been passed down through generations. Complementing this linguistic richness was Tifinagh, one of the oldest writing systems in the world, etched into stones and inscribed on artifacts, capturing the essence of a civilization that revered knowledge, memory, and artistic expression as much as survival. Within Berber communities, Life moved with a rhythm that balanced individual skill with collective responsibility. Their society was remarkably egalitarian, with decisions often reached through communal deliberation rather than imposed authority. A structure that not only strengthened social cohesion, but also nurtured a sense of shared purpose. In this context, women were far from passive observers. They were custodians of heritage, the voices of memory, weaving oral histories, songs, and traditions into the daily lives of their people, ensuring that the wisdom of the past would illuminate the paths of the future. Through their songs and stories, women preserved lessons of courage, morality, and communal values, acting as living libraries of cultural knowledge and spiritual insight. Art and craftsmanship were woven into the very fabric of Berber life, and nowhere was this more evident than in the exquisite textiles, jewelry, and pottery that emerged from their hands. Each creation was both practical and symbolic, reflecting a deep connection to the desert, the mountains, and the uses that sustained them, as well as a spiritual understanding of the world around them. These artifacts were more than decorative objects. They were expressions of identity, markers of community affiliation, and embodiments of a worldview that revered both beauty and utility. The patterns, colors, and techniques carried hidden meanings, telling stories of lineage, social status, and spiritual belief, ensuring that culture could be both lived and communicated visually across generations. Trade, too, played a pivotal role in shaping the Berber experience. Their caravans traversed the unforgiving expanse of the Sahara, linking distant civilizations and bringing prosperity as well as knowledge to communities that might otherwise have remained isolated. Salt, gold, and other precious goods passed through their hands. But alongside these commodities traveled ideas, religious practices, and innovations, creating a dynamic exchange that reinforced the Berbers' adaptability and their central role in the region's interconnected economies. Yet even as they engaged in commerce, the Berbers remained fiercely independent, maintaining their autonomy and ensuring that the flow of goods did not compromise their cultural integrity. Conflict, when it arose, was met with strategic ingenuity and valor. The Berbers' intimate understanding of their terrain, its mountains, deserts, and coastal corridors made them formidable defenders, capable of resisting powerful external forces from Roman legions to Byzantine armies. Leaders like Queen Kahina became emblematic of this resistance, not merely as military figures but as symbols of the enduring Amazigh spirit, demonstrating that cultural preservation and political agency were inseparable from the defense of homeland and identity. Her leadership exemplified how strategy, charisma, and conviction could rally communities to resist assimilation while navigating the realities of an ever-changing political landscape. Religion, while not initially imposed, would later become intertwined with these cultural threads. Yet even in moments of profound transformation, the Berbers' foundational values persisted. Their spiritual life was often expressed through communal rituals, veneration of nature, and a deep sense of moral responsibility to one another. This spiritual framework, intertwined with social and artistic practices, created a cohesive identity that could withstand external pressures, allowing the Berbers not just to survive but to influence and shape the societies around them, leaving traces of their ingenuity, resilience, and artistry that remain visible to this day. Perhaps most remarkable was the way the Berbers integrated all aspects of life into a coherent cultural narrative, where language, art, community, and spiritual practice were not discrete elements but interconnected strands forming a living tapestry. Their identity was dynamic, capable of absorbing influences without losing its core essence, demonstrating a sophistication and adaptability that allowed them to persist even as external forces swept across their lands. In a world often defined by conquest and domination, the Berbers carved out a model of continuity, one where cultural preservation, creative expression, and communal responsibility were inextricably linked. Through centuries of adaptation, trade, artistry, and resistance, the Berbers created a legacy that transcended mere survival. Their society was not static. It evolved in response to both environmental challenges and human encounters, reflecting a nuanced understanding of balance, resilience, and identity. The Amazigh story, as preserved through language, Tifinagh inscriptions, oral histories, and material culture, offers a window into a civilization that valued freedom, creativity, and collective responsibility, proving that culture is not merely inherited but actively sustained, nurtured, and defended through the choices and actions of each generation. It is within this rich and vibrant framework that the Berbers' story begins, setting the stage for the transformations that would come with the arrival of new peoples, new religions, and new political systems, yet always retaining the unmistakable essence of a proud and enduring people. Long before the sands of the Sahara became a stage for the sweeping movements of empires, the Berbers, or Amazigh, had already carved out a world defined by ingenuity, resilience, and a remarkable capacity for connection. Their lands, stretching from the rugged coasts of the Mediterranean to the vast, sun-scorched deserts of the south, demanded resourcefulness, and the Berbers rose to the challenge, turning isolation into opportunity and adversity into mastery. Trade became the lifeblood of their society, not merely a matter of exchanging goods, but a conduit for ideas, culture, and influence, linking distant civilizations in a web of mutual dependence and respect. Caravans laden with salt, gold, ivory, and exotic wares wove across the perilous expanses of the Sahara, guided by knowledge of the shifting sands, hidden oases, and the unpredictable rhythms of desert winds, each journey a testament to courage, skill, and endurance. These trade routes were more than economic pathways. They were arteries through which the Berbers channeled the lifeblood of connection, bridging the Mediterranean world with the riches and cultures of sub-Saharan Africa, creating a network that few other peoples could navigate with such efficiency and sophistication. Yet trade alone does not capture the full scope of Berber life, for their story is equally one of defense, strategy, and unyielding determination in the face of external threats. From the Phoenicians who established thriving ports along the North African coast to the Romans who brought roads, aqueducts, and cities, and later the Byzantines whose influence extended across the region. Each wave of external power tested the Berbers' capacity to preserve their autonomy and cultural integrity. Time and again, the Amazigh met these incursions not merely with submission, but with resistance honed by intimate knowledge of their own terrain. The deserts, mountains, and hidden valleys serving as both shield and battlefield. In these landscapes, the Berbers became masters of guerrilla tactics, striking swiftly, disappearing into the sands, and using the environment itself as an ally in defense of their communities, their lands, and the values they held sacred. Trade and warfare were intertwined in a delicate balance that defined Berber society, with each caravan journey carrying not only tangible goods but also the subtle threads of diplomacy, negotiation, and cultural exchange. Through trade, the Berbers absorbed elements of foreign technology, religious thought, and artistic expression, integrating these influences selectively into their own vibrant traditions without surrendering the core of their identity. At the same time, the necessity of defending their trade networks, settlements, and sacred spaces forged a martial culture that respected both strength and strategy, valuing leaders capable of guiding communities through peril while preserving the social cohesion that allowed these societies to thrive across centuries. Figures like Queen Kahina emerge as emblematic of this duality, embodying the synthesis of commerce, diplomacy, and warfare. She was not merely a warrior but a strategist, a leader whose insight into both the human and physical terrain enabled her to rally disparate tribes against a common threat, demonstrating that survival in North Africa required both intellect and valor. Trade-savvy and martial acumen. Under her leadership, the Berbers resisted early Arab incursions, demonstrating that their autonomy was not negotiable and their cultural legacy not disposable. The legends of such leaders are embedded in oral histories and songs, carrying forward lessons about courage, adaptability, and the persistent striving for independence that characterized Amazigh society for millennia. The Berbers' trade networks were more than conduits for wealth. They became channels through which religion, language, and ideas spread, fostering an environment where adaptation and resilience went hand in hand. The caravans that moved across the Sahara did not merely transport salt and gold. They carried messages, facilitated intermarriage, and introduced new practices, creating a dynamic exchange that allowed Berber culture to evolve while remaining rooted in its foundational values. In cities along the Mediterranean, Berber merchants engaged with Phoenician, Greek, and Roman traders, learning new techniques in navigation, finance, and material production, all while maintaining their distinct cultural identity. These interactions reveal a society capable of sophistication without surrendering essence, of engagement without assimilation, of openness without losing self-determination. Even as empires rose and fell around them, the Berbers remained steadfast in preserving their language, Tazikh, and script, Tifinagh, ensuring that the stories of their ancestors and the knowledge of their environment were passed from one generation to the next. The skills honed in the desert, navigating by stars, reading the shifting sands, understanding water sources hidden beneath the dunes, became intertwined with artistry, commerce, and political acumen, forming a holistic approach to survival and prosperity that few contemporary societies could match. This integration of trade, defense, and cultural continuity illustrates the complexity and depth of Amazigh society, revealing a civilization that thrived not through mere conquest, but through intelligence, adaptation, and a profound understanding of interconnected systems, both human and natural. In this way, the Berbers were more than survivors. They were architects of a society that harmonized commerce, martial skill, and cultural expression. Each caravan that crossed the Sahara, each encounter with an invading force, each act of artistic creation or communal governance, contributed to a story of enduring identity and remarkable sophistication. Their legacy is not only etched in the remains of ancient settlements or the pages of history books, but is alive in the ongoing traditions, languages, and practices of the Amazigh people today, standing as a testament to resilience, ingenuity, and the enduring power of a culture that thrived at the intersection of trade and resistance, connection and autonomy, history and identity. By the dawn of the 7th century, the vast and diverse landscapes of North Africa stood on the threshold of transformation, as the winds of change carried a new force from the Arabian Peninsula. Arab armies, propelled by the fervor of a young and expanding Islamic world, moved steadily westward, bringing with them not only military might but an entirely different worldview, a language, and a system of governance that would reshape the social and cultural fabric of the region for centuries to come. At first, the Berbers met these newcomers with fierce resistance. Their knowledge of the deserts, mountains, and coastal corridors, giving them a distinct advantage in guerrilla tactics and local strategy. And legendary leaders like Queen Kahina rose to defend the sovereignty and traditions of their people. Yet, the Arabs were not merely invaders in the conventional sense. They carried a message that was both spiritual and social, introducing Islam as a faith whose teachings emphasized equality, community, and moral responsibility, resonating with certain values already present within Berber societies. The initial clashes were as much ideological as they were martial, a complex interplay of defense, negotiation, and adaptation. While swords and strategy defined the battlefield, the ideas that accompanied them began to weave themselves subtly into Berber life. The message of Islam, with its promise of a universal community transcending tribal and ethnic divisions, offered opportunities for alliance, social mobility, and a spiritual framework that contrasted sharply with the fragmented and often hierarchical structures imposed by previous empires. Over time, this combination of practical governance and religious guidance began to open avenues for the Berbers to engage with the new order without completely abandoning their heritage. And it is within this delicate negotiation that the seeds of cultural transformation were sown. As Arab forces established footholds across coastal cities and key trade centers, they introduced the Arabic language, initially as a tool of administration, diplomacy, and commerce, but gradually as a medium for religious practice and intellectual exchange. The Quran, recited in Arabic, became a central pillar of daily life, drawing Berbers into the wider Islamic community and encouraging the adoption of a language that was increasingly associated with learning, governance, and spiritual participation. Mosques and religious schools emerged as centers not only of worship but of education and civic engagement, offering Berber communities both practical skills and a connection to a broader, interconnected world. These spaces became arenas of cultural negotiation, where the preservation of Berber identity could coexist with the adoption of new linguistic, religious, and administrative practices. The process of Arabization did not unfold overnight, nor was it uniform across the region. Coastal cities and trading hubs, where interaction with Arab merchants, scholars, and officials was most frequent, often saw more rapid assimilation, while remote desert and mountain communities maintained the use of Tazik and continued to uphold traditional practices. Yet even in these areas, influence gradually seeped through trade networks, intermarriage, and the shared spiritual life of Islam, creating hybrid spaces where Berber and Arab customs intertwined. The flexibility of Berber society, its emphasis on community deliberation, and the capacity for selective adaptation allowed them to absorb aspects of Arab culture without erasing their own heritage, blending rather than surrendering. Political structures introduced by the Arabs also played a crucial role in shaping the evolving identity of North Africa. Dynasties and governing systems, from the Rashidun expansion to later Umayyad and Abbasid administrations, established norms and practices that increasingly encouraged the use of Arabic in official, legal, and commercial contexts, further embedding the language and culture within daily life. While some Berber tribes resisted the political dominance of Arab rulers, others found ways to engage productively within the new systems, leveraging opportunities for leadership, scholarship, and economic advancement while preserving core cultural values. Over generations, this interplay between resistance, adaptation, and integration created a nuanced reality in which Berber communities were neither fully subjugated nor completely separate, but active participants in the shaping of a new regional identity. Religion, language, and governance intertwined to produce profound cultural shifts. Yet the transformation was rarely one-sided. The Amazigh retained significant elements of their identity, embedding traditional practices, social norms, and spiritual beliefs into the new Islamic framework, creating a unique fusion that distinguished North Africa from other regions of the expanding Arab world. This blending is evident in art, architecture, music, and oral traditions, where Berber motifs and storytelling merged with Arab Islamic forms, producing cultural expressions that were at once local and connected to a wider civilization. Through this integration, the Berbers ensured that their voice remained audible, their heritage respected, and their presence woven into the very fabric of the region's evolving identity. Even in the face of centuries of cultural and political change, the Amazigh demonstrated remarkable resilience, balancing adaptation with preservation. They adopted Arabic for practical, spiritual, and administrative reasons, embraced Islam as a framework for social and moral cohesion, and engaged with the political structures of the day, all while maintaining a distinct sense of self, community, and history. Their experience during the Arab expansion illustrates the complexity of cultural transformation, showing that assimilation need not mean erasure, and that identity can evolve through negotiation, integration, and selective adoption. This period of North African history, marked both conflict and synthesis, laid the groundwork for the rich, dual identity that defines the region today, a tapestry of Berber and Arab influences that continues to shape language, culture, and social structures. The story of the 7th century Arab expansion is not only a tale of conquest but a story of human adaptability, cultural resilience, and the capacity for societies to engage with change while honoring the legacies of their past, a testament to the enduring spirit of the Amazigh people and the profound transformations that have shaped North Africa over the centuries. The transformation of North Africa through Arabization was neither sudden nor simplistic. It unfolded over centuries as a complex and multifaceted process that wove together the strands of language, religion, governance, and culture into a new and enduring tapestry, reshaping the identities of communities across the Maghreb while allowing the Amazigh heritage to persist beneath layers of adaptation and synthesis. Arabic, initially introduced as the language of administration and the Quran, gradually spread through trade, scholarship, and religious practice, becoming the cornerstone of daily life for those seeking to engage with the broader Islamic world. In bustling urban centers and along strategic trade routes, speaking Arabic was not merely a practical necessity. It became a marker of social mobility, an entryway into centers of learning, and a bridge that connected diverse communities under the unifying influence of Islam. Yet the process was neither uniform nor uncontested, as remote mountain villages and desert oases continued to preserve Tazikh, the language of their ancestors, demonstrating the Amazigh ability to adapt selectively, absorbing elements of Arab culture while safeguarding the essence of their own identity. Religion was both a catalyst and a framework for this cultural evolution. Islam offered a spiritual and moral structure that transcended tribal affiliations and provided new social networks that linked Berber communities with the wider Ummah, reinforcing the appeal of Arabic as the language of devotion, scholarship, and ritual. Mosques and Quranic schools emerged as pivotal institutions, not only educating the population in religious practice but also serving as centers for the dissemination of language, law, and cultural norms. The memorization of the Quran, recitation of prayers, and participation in communal worship fostered a shared linguistic and religious foundation that increasingly influenced daily life, integrating Berber communities into a wider cultural and political sphere without erasing their unique traditions. Over time, this integration was reinforced by a growing body of Berber scholars and clerics who studied in the great learning centers of Cairo, Baghdad, and Kairouan, returning home as advocates of Arab Islamic traditions while simultaneously interpreting these teachings through the lens of their local culture. blending reverence for their ancestors with devotion to the broader faith. Trade and governance further accelerated the Arabization process. Berber merchants who navigated the Mediterranean and trans-Saharan networks encountered Arab counterparts whose language, customs, and commercial practices gradually influenced the way transactions, contracts, and social interactions were conducted. Proficiency in Arabic became essential not only for economic success but also for participation in civic life, creating an incentive for communities to adopt the language and associated cultural norms. Political systems introduced by Arab dynasties, from the Rashidun Caliphate to the Umayyads, Abbasids, and later the Fatimids, imposed administrative structures that emphasized Arabic as the language of law, taxation, and official correspondence, embedding it firmly within governance and reinforcing its status as a marker of legitimacy and power. Even Berber-led dynasties such as the Almoravids and Almohads adopted Arabic in administration, demonstrating the practical and symbolic importance of the language as a unifying tool, while simultaneously preserving elements of Amazigh heritage in governance. Military organization and cultural expression. The blending of cultures was neither passive nor coerced entirely. It involved negotiation, selective adaptation, and the creation of hybrid identities. Berber communities absorbed Arab dress, cuisine, social customs, and artistic influences, yet retained core practices that defined their sense of self. From the Tifinagh script to the oral storytelling traditions that preserved history, moral lessons, and communal values, artistic and architectural expressions, such as the design of mosques and palaces, reflected this synthesis, incorporating indigenous patterns, motifs, and spatial concepts into structures that adhered to Islamic norms, producing a distinctive regional aesthetic that spoke of continuity amid change. In this way, Arabization did not obliterate Berber identity but layered it with new dimensions, creating a cultural palimpsest where the old and the new coexisted, interacted, and enriched one another. Resistance and adaptation existed in parallel, as some Berber tribes resisted Arab political and cultural dominance through uprisings and movements that asserted local autonomy and challenged perceived inequalities within Islamic governance. Groups such as the Kharijites found adherents among the Berbers, promoting egalitarian interpretations of Islam that resonated with traditional Amazigh values and provided ideological support for opposition to external control. These movements exemplified the nuanced interplay of adoption and defiance that characterized centuries of Arabization, illustrating that assimilation was neither absolute nor uncontested, but a negotiated reality in which communities exercised agency, asserting their values while engaging with new cultural currents. Over generations, the process of Arabization produced a region where language, religion, governance, and culture became increasingly intertwined. Yet this interweaving did not erase the Amazigh legacy. Tayzik remained alive in rural and mountainous regions. Oral histories continued to circulate, and the Tifinagh script persisted as a symbol of identity, ensuring that the cultural memory of the Berbers survived even as Arabic became dominant in administration, commerce, and Islamic practice. In essence, Arabization was a transformative dialogue between two civilizations, producing a North Africa where dual identities could coexist, where adaptation and preservation reinforced each other, and where the Amazigh experience remained foundational to understanding the region's history and cultural richness. Through the lens of language, religion, trade, and governance, the centuries-long Arabization of North Africa illustrates the complexity of cultural evolution, demonstrating how societies negotiate identity, influence, and belonging over time. It reveals a region shaped by integration without total assimilation, where the Berbers' capacity for resilience, creativity, and strategic adaptation ensured that they remain not merely witnesses to history, but active participants in its unfolding, leaving a legacy that continues to define North Africa's linguistic, cultural, and spiritual landscapes today, a testament to the enduring power of human agency, negotiation, and the layered nature of identity, even as the tides of Arabization swept across North Africa, bringing with them new languages, religious practices, and administrative systems. The Berbers, or Amazigh, displayed a remarkable resilience that allowed them to preserve the core of their identity, while simultaneously engaging with the transformative forces around them. Their history was never one of passive assimilation. It was a story of adaptation, negotiation, and creative synthesis, in which the enduring elements of Amazigh culture were woven into the evolving social, political, and spiritual fabric of the region. Language served as a central anchor of this identity, with Tazikh continuing to be spoken in villages, valleys, and mountain communities where isolation provided a buffer against immediate cultural dominance. Oral traditions flourished alongside the written Arabic of mosques and administrative centers, carrying the legends, histories, and moral narratives of the Amazigh people across generations. These oral histories were not merely stories. They were living repositories of knowledge, ethics, and communal memory, ensuring that the values and worldview of the Berbers remained vibrant even as they interacted with and integrated aspects of Arab and Islamic culture. The Tifinagh script, one of the world's oldest writing systems, played an equally vital role in sustaining Amazigh identity, serving as both a functional means of communication and a powerful symbol of cultural continuity. Carved into stone, inscribed on manuscripts, or painted onto textiles, Tifinagh provided a tangible connection to an ancestral lineage that predated the Arab arrival. Asserting a presence that could neither be erased nor forgotten, the script persisted in everyday use in rural communities and experienced periods of revival in modern times, reflecting the enduring desire of the Amazigh to maintain a distinct cultural voice. It became intertwined with music, art, and communal celebrations, all of which functioned as expressions of identity that could adapt to the surrounding Arab-Islamic environment without being wholly subsumed by it. Festivals, song, and dance offered communal affirmation of Amazigh heritage, while simultaneously incorporating the spiritual and aesthetic influences introduced through Islam, creating a cultural mosaic that was at once familiar and innovative, deeply rooted and expansively connected. Art and music were equally critical in this process of cultural continuity and hybridization, embodying the synthesis of Amazigh and Arab-Islamic elements in ways that were both public and intimate. Geometric patterns, motifs inspired by nature, and symbolic imagery persisted in decorative arts, jewelry, and textiles, while melodies, rhythms, and song lyrics conveyed stories of heroism, resistance, and daily life, creating spaces where identity could be celebrated openly, even as Arabic became the language of administration, religion, and urban commerce. These artistic expressions provided alternative arenas where Amazigh identity could flourish, shaping communal memory and everyday experience. In this way, art and music were not merely aesthetic choices but essential components of resilience, offering a medium through which the Berbers could negotiate the pressures of Arabization while asserting continuity, creativity, and pride. The integration of Amazigh and Arab-Islamic practices extended beyond symbolism into the practical dimensions of life, creating a hybrid cultural reality that shaped governance, trade, social norms, and religious expression, while the Arab-Islamic legal, administrative, and religious frameworks offered structure and cohesion. Berber customs and principles of egalitarian decision-making persisted, often influencing how these new systems were interpreted and applied locally. Women, long central to the preservation of oral history and communal rituals, continued to play pivotal roles in transmitting culture, mediating intergenerational knowledge, and integrating new religious or social norms without erasing traditional practices. This continuity underscores the Amazigh capacity to participate in broader societal transformation while retaining agency over what aspects of their heritage would endure. Even in times of political pressure or cultural marginalization, the Amazigh demonstrated an ability to balance adaptation with preservation, ensuring that their language, customs, and spiritual practices remained active components of daily life. Arabic became dominant in public administration, education, and religious practice, yet Tazikh continued to resonate in conversation, storytelling, and ceremonial observance. Tifinagh survived on gravestones, monuments, and artisanal objects, while art and music maintained distinct regional characteristics, drawing on local landscapes, mythologies, and cosmologies. These practices collectively sustained a sense of belonging and identity that was independent of, yet intertwined with, Islamic norms, producing a dual consciousness in which the Amazigh were both participants in and shapers of a shared cultural landscape. The resulting hybrid culture was neither a simple blend nor a one-sided imposition, but a dynamic negotiation that allowed the Amazigh to thrive within an evolving regional framework while retaining the essence of their heritage. Arabic provided access to global networks of commerce, learning, and religious practice, while Tazikh, Tifinagh, art, and music anchored Amazigh communities in the memory and wisdom of their ancestors. Over time, this dual identity became normalized, creating social, linguistic, and cultural spaces in which Amazigh and Arab Islamic elements coexisted, influenced one another, and generated new forms of expression that were uniquely North African. Through centuries of interaction, resistance, adaptation, and synthesis, the Berbers forged a resilient identity that could accommodate change without losing its core. The survival of their language, script, oral traditions, art, and music illustrates a profound capacity for cultural continuity, highlighting how human societies navigate complex processes of transformation while maintaining a sense of self and community. Today, the Amazigh presence remains a vibrant, living testament to this centuries-long journey, a cultural bridge between past and present, indigenous tradition and global influence, demonstrating that even amid profound historical shifts, identity can endure, evolve, and flourish, offering a compelling model of resilience, adaptability, and creative synthesis for all who seek to understand the intertwined histories of North Africa. As the 20th century unfolded across North Africa, a new chapter in the story of the Amazigh people emerged, one defined not by conquest or gradual assimilation, but by conscious revival and assertion of identity in the face of modern political and cultural pressures. After centuries of adaptation and integration with Arab Islamic society, many Berbers found themselves marginalized in the rapidly changing landscapes of post-colonial nation-states, where policies often prioritized Arab unity and linguistic homogeneity over the recognition of indigenous heritage. In response, grassroots movements and intellectual initiatives began to flourish, driven by a renewed sense of pride in Amazigh history, language, and cultural contributions, signaling a remarkable resurgence of identity that had been maintained quietly through generations of oral tradition. Tefanagh's script and artistic expression, these movements were fueled by a growing awareness that cultural recognition was not simply symbolic but essential for preserving the collective memory, social cohesion, and dignity of Amazigh communities, whose roots stretched back thousands of years before the Arab expansion and Islamic integration had reshaped the region. Tamazight, the language of the Amazigh, became a central focus of these movements, with activists and educators advocating for its inclusion in schools. Public media and governmental recognition. Campaigns to standardize and teach Tamazight were not merely academic exercises. They were acts of cultural reclamation, reconnecting younger generations with the linguistic heritage that had survived in villages, mountains, and desert oases despite centuries of Arabization. The language carried with it the rhythms of storytelling, poetry, and songs that had long preserved community histories. Spiritual teachings and moral codes, and its revival became a way to restore the continuity of cultural knowledge that had previously existed primarily in oral form. Educational initiatives often combined formal instruction with the celebration of traditional arts and crafts, integrating lessons into Finag script, Amazigh music, and historical narratives to foster a holistic understanding of identity that bridged past and present. Cultural festivals emerged as another powerful arena for the revitalization of Amazigh heritage, providing spaces where communities could publicly assert their identity, share traditions, and celebrate continuity. These festivals, often held in historic towns, rural villages, or desert landscapes that had been central to Amazigh life for centuries, became gatherings where music, dance, crafts, and storytelling created a living mosaic of the culture, inviting participation from both local residents and international audiences. The festivals served not only as celebrations but as forms of resistance, asserting visibility and relevance in societies where Arab-centric narratives had long dominated public life. They highlighted the richness of Amazigh artistic expression, from intricate textile patterns and jewelry to oral poetry and folk music, demonstrating how culture could thrive in dynamic interaction with contemporary realities without losing its historical essence. The revival of Amazigh identity was also deeply intertwined with broader social and political advocacy, as movements sought to challenge structural inequalities and promote recognition within governance and public institutions. Activists campaigned for the official recognition of Tamazight in constitutions, legal frameworks, and public signage, arguing that such recognition was essential for ensuring equitable participation in society and preserving the rights of Amazigh communities. These efforts drew attention to long-standing disparities in education, media representation, and resource allocation, particularly in rural and traditionally Amazigh majority regions, framing the preservation of language and culture as inseparable from social justice and civic inclusion. The intertwining of cultural pride with political engagement reflected a sophisticated understanding that identity was both personal and collective, and that safeguarding heritage required both celebration and advocacy. Over time, these movements began to achieve tangible outcomes, including the formal recognition of Tamazight as an official language in countries such as Algeria and Morocco, a milestone that symbolized both historical continuity and the legitimacy of Amazigh contributions to national culture. Educational programs were established to teach Tamazight alongside Arabic, ensuring that younger generations could navigate both worlds while maintaining a strong connection to their roots. In parallel, cultural organizations promoted the documentation and preservation of traditional music, art, and oral histories, creating archives and media platforms that amplified Amazigh voices within the broader public sphere. The combination of legal recognition, educational reform, and cultural celebration forged a renewed sense of agency among Amazigh communities, empowering them to actively shape their representation and influence the evolving identity of North Africa. The 20th century revival of Amazigh pride also highlighted the dynamic interplay between tradition and modernity, illustrating how indigenous cultures could adapt to contemporary forms of communication, media, and governance while remaining anchored in centuries-old values and practices. Social media, publications, and international cultural exchanges became new tools for transmitting knowledge, sharing performances, and connecting dispersed communities, enabling Amazigh identity to thrive not only locally but globally. This period demonstrated that cultural endurance was not passive preservation but active engagement, requiring creativity, advocacy, and a willingness to negotiate the intersections of history, politics, and contemporary life. Through these movements, the Amazigh successfully navigated the challenges of maintaining identity in a world increasingly shaped by globalization. Centralizing states and dominant cultural narratives, their revival efforts were a testament to resilience, highlighting the capacity of communities to reclaim and reinterpret their heritage, celebrate achievements, and assert visibility without rejecting the broader social and religious frameworks in which they lived. By combining education, cultural festivals, political advocacy, and artistic expression, the 20th century Berber pride movements ensured that Amazigh language, customs, and arts were not only preserved but revitalized, inspiring new generations to take pride in their ancestry and to participate fully in the shaping of North Africa's cultural landscape. Ultimately, this period represents a continuation of the centuries-long story of the Amazigh, a narrative of adaptation, negotiation, and synthesis, in which identity is neither erased nor static but dynamically engaged with the forces of history, politics, and culture. The revival of Tamazight, the flourishing of festivals, and the integration of educational initiatives illustrate a people reclaiming their heritage with both passion and purpose, reaffirming that the Amazigh legacy is not a relic of the past but a living, evolving presence that enriches the social, linguistic, and cultural mosaic of North Africa. Through these efforts, the Berbers ensured that their story, once threatened by marginalization, would endure, offering lessons in resilience, pride, and the enduring power of cultural memory for generations to come. As we arrive at the present day, the story of North Africa and its people is one of intricate layers, where history, culture, and identity intersect in ways that are both complex and profoundly inspiring. Modern North Africans often find themselves navigating a dual heritage, embracing both Ar and Amazigh roots, a reality that speaks to centuries of cultural interplay, adaptation, and negotiation. The Arabization of North Africa was not a singular event but a long, dynamic process that spanned generations. Blending languages, religions, governance systems, and cultural practices. Yet even as Arab influence spread across the Maghreb, the Amazigh people, through resilience, creativity, and determination, preserved the core of their identity, ensuring that their language, art, music, and oral traditions continued to shape the region. Today, this blended heritage is visible in everyday life, from the languages spoken on city streets and in rural villages, to the music performed at festivals, the designs of clothing and jewelry, and the communal stories that continue to circulate in families and public gatherings. The journey of Arabization highlights not just adaptation, but also resistance, negotiation, and synthesis. The Amazigh were not passive recipients of external influence. They engaged with new ideas, practices, and languages selectively, integrating those that aligned with their values while safeguarding the elements that defined them as a people. Arabic and Islam became frameworks through which communities could connect with a wider world, gain access to educational and economic opportunities, and participate in regional governance, while Amazigh customs, oral histories, and the Tifinagh script ensured continuity with the past. This duality illustrates a fundamental principle of human societies, that identity is not fixed, but evolves through interaction, choice, and resilience, allowing people to engage with change while retaining a sense of who they are. In the 20th century and beyond, the resurgence of Amazigh cultural pride further emphasized the importance of preserving diversity within North Africa. Movements advocating for the recognition of Tamazight as an official language, educational programs teaching the language and script, and cultural festivals celebrating music, art, and history have reinforced the visibility and legitimacy of Amazigh heritage. These initiatives have not only revived traditions that might have been lost, but also fostered a new generation of North Africans who understand and value the dual nature of their identity. By embracing both Arab and Amazigh roots, communities have created a cultural landscape that is richer, more inclusive, and more reflective of the historical complexities that shape the region. The history of Arabization and Amazigh resilience offers lessons far beyond the borders of North Africa. It reminds us that cultural change does not always mean erasure, and that communities can adapt to new influences while preserving the essential elements of their heritage. It highlights the value of education, oral tradition, art, and public celebration in maintaining identity across generations. It also demonstrates the power of collective action, as Amazigh movements showed that advocacy, pride, and cultural visibility can secure recognition and support within modern political and social structures. In essence, the story of North Africa is a testament to human ingenuity, adaptability, and the enduring desire to remain connected to one's roots while participating fully in a broader, interconnected world. For those exploring this rich history, the legacy of the Amazigh is both inspiring and instructive. Their journey through conquest, Arabization, and cultural revival illustrates how resilience and creativity can sustain identity over millennia. It underscores the importance of understanding history, not as a series of isolated events, but as a continuum shaped by the interplay of peoples, languages, and beliefs. By appreciating the complexity of North Africa's past, we gain insight into the ways communities negotiate identity, preserve diversity, and contribute to the evolving tapestry of human culture. As we reflect on this story, it is important to recognize the voices and contributions of both Arab and Amazigh communities, and to celebrate the coexistence and interaction that have shaped modern North Africa. Their shared history demonstrates that cultural richness emerges not from uniformity, but from dialogue, adaptation, and mutual respect. The Amazigh experience, in particular, is a reminder that even under centuries of external influence, a community's core values, language, and artistic expressions can endure, evolve, and inspire. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of North Africa, exploring the resilience of the Amazigh people and the transformative impact of Arabization. We hope this story has provided a deeper understanding of the complexities of identity, the importance of cultural preservation, and the power of adaptation. If you enjoyed this exploration and want to continue uncovering hidden histories from around the world, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and share it with others who are curious about the fascinating stories that shape our world. Your support allows us to continue bringing these stories to life and celebrating the incredible diversity and resilience of human culture. Stay connected, stay curious, And remember that history is not only about the past, it is a guide for understanding who we are today and how we shape the world for tomorrow. We will see you in the next video as we continue to uncover the hidden truths. Remarkable people and transformative events that have left their mark on human history. Thank you again for watching, and do not forget to like, subscribe, and join us on this journey of discovery.